Have you heard of Cyrus, the great Persian king who fulfilled prophecies and released Israel? Find out this amazing biblical story. Many people do not understand why a pagan king of the Iranian plateau is called Messiah in the Old Testament. Cyrus the First, the emperor of Persia, was responsible for freeing the people of Judah from the Babylonian captivity, fulfilling a prophecy made almost 150 years before his birth. Cyrus, better known as Cyrus the Great, ascended to power after the death of his father Cambyses I in 559 BC and became king of Ansan. With political ability and support from Persian supporters and fears, Cyrus confronted Astyages, considered a weak and corrupt king who dominated the average form. General Harpago, wronged by Astyages, deserted Cyrus' side with his army, which contributed significantly to the rise of the young emperor. In 550 BC, the Persians rapidly captured Ecbatana, the capital of the average, joining the Persians and fears under Cyrus' domain. This achievement marked the beginning of the great Persian Empire founded by Cyrus, which managed to unite the nations, forming a respectable military power. Cyrus, the great Persian emperor, conquered Lydia, led by the Curry king, famous for her immense wealth. Croesus, confident in his fortune and alliances, refused to accept the Fear-Man rule and challenged Cyrus in battle. However, Cyrus came out victorious and took the kingdom of Lydia in 546 BC, including his capital Sardis. A few years later, in 539 BC, it was the turn of the powerful Babylon to face Cyrus. The city was very fortified, with imposing walls and internal supplies that allowed a prolonged siege. Nabonidus and his son Belshazzar ruled Babylon, but his government was weak and unpopular among the Babylonian priests. With cunning tactics and an ingenious strategy of deflecting the Euphrates River to allow its soldiers to enter the city without significant resistance, Cyrus conquered Babylon without bloodshed. The fall of Babylon was interpreted as a divine sign by the Jews, as recorded in the narrative of the prophet Daniel. Cyrus, in conquering Babylon in 539 BC, presented himself to the priests and the people as a benevolent liberator and leader. Contrary to the cruel practices of the ancient Assyrian and Babylonian rulers, it allowed the exiled people to return to their lands. The focus was on the restoration of the Jews, whom he not only authorized, but encouraged to return to Judah and rebuild his temple in Jerusalem. The decree issued by Cyrus shows not only a friendly policy regarding captives, but a sincere intention to rebuild the religious and social environment of the peoples involved. Cyrus' attitude was interpreted by the Jews as a fulfillment of divine prophecies, showing that God used this pagan king as an instrument to realize his redemptive purposes in history. Despite being a polytheistic king, Cyrus was used by God remarkably for the realization of a divine purpose. His performance in allowing and even encouraging the return of exiled peoples, including Jews, to their lands and reconstruction of their sacred places, was interpreted as a divinely inspired action. Despite his personal faith, Cyrus was described in historical sources as a charismatic ruler who promoted peace and restoration among peoples under his jurisdiction. The biblical narrative emphasizes that his conduct was in line with divine prophecies, and that his heart was moved by the Lord to accomplish such deed. His decree favorable to the Jews, registered in the book of Ezra, reflects not only a humanitarian policy, but also a divine instrumentalization of the Persian king in favor of the redemption of his people. The permission given by Cyrus to the Jews to return to Judah and reconstruct his temple in Jerusalem demonstrates a surprising alignment with the Old Testament prophecies over the role of the king as an instrument of divine will. Thus, even being a worshipper of multiple gods, Cyrus became an integral part of Israel's redemptive history according to the Holy Scriptures. His reign lasted about 29 years, and his legacy significantly influenced not only the political and social history of the ancient world, but also the religions of the time. Cyrus was portrayed as a benevolent ruler who promoted religious tolerance and allowed the restoration of various exiled peoples. His role as an instrument of liberation and redemption in the biblical narrative puts him as a striking example of how God can act through individuals who do not necessarily share the same faith. His influence transcended political boundaries, making him an iconic figure, not only in the history of the Persians, but also in the collective memory of humanity. Cyrus' legacy, the great Persian king, remains alive to the present day, being remembered as an example of just and compassionate leadership amid the complexities of the political and religious scenario of antiquity. If you want to deepen the knowledge of God's Word and study online theology, check out the information in the video description or the first comment fixed. Cyrus' story shows how God uses unlikely leaders to fulfill his greatest purposes. While Cyrus freed externally, Jesus Christ is the one who brings us spiritual freedom. If you like this content, don't forget to leave your like and share with your friends.